Hi, and welcome to another Fireside Chat with Supply Chain Resources Group, where we discuss various topics and trends within the manufacturing industry. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's topic is focused on recruiting in U.S. manufacturing. And today we are joined by two experts on the topic, Joanna Irwin and Harrison Hayes. Let's take a moment and let them introduce themselves. Joanna, would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes, I'm happy to. Thank you, Tim. My name's Joanna Irwin. I'm on the board of advisors for Supply Chain Resources Group and also served for many years as the chief marketing officer for the world's largest talent company. So happy to be joining you today.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're
Yeah.
happy to have you. And Mr. Harrison Hayes, would you like to introduce yourself as well, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Joanna. Harrison Hayes, VP of Business Development and Strategy here at Supply Chain Resources Group. I explore collaborating with new customers in new regions across different service sets that our global business offers. Really excited to be here. I've got a background in contract manufacturing and global supply chain strategy.
Excellent, excellent. Happy to have you both. I'm sure your expertise and insights are going to be invaluable. Um, and so let's just jump right in. I guess the first topic of conversation here is what trends are really driving manufacturing in the US today?
I'll tackle that one. This one is very timely, very topical. Tim, this could almost honestly be its own dedicated fireside chat. There is a very interesting geopolitical, macroeconomic environment out there that a lot of brands, a lot of OEMs, and a lot of contract manufacturers are really working hard to navigate, where the current state and the future state and the past state are all conflicting with each other right now. So, kind of the philosophy of just shipping product and shipping manufacturing programs over to Asia and then shipping that product back to North America, that's being rewritten in real time, where a lot of 25, 30 years of launching these programs in Asia and then having the demand be supported out of North America, that's being restructured. So what we're seeing from a supply chain resources group lens is a lot of our customers are looking for a non-China solution somewhere else in Asia or even a North America solution. So Mexico, our colleagues down in Mexico and our colleagues here in the US are tremendously busy right now because a lot of very complex, very large manufacturing programs are now being targeted for North America, where historically, again, the last 25 to 30 years, those programs would have comfortably been folded into the Asian-based manufacturing footprint. It's really accelerated by a lot of things, most notably COVID. COVID, kind of rewrote a lot of supply chain strategy where supply chain leadership said we need to de-risk our supply chain. We cannot have all our eggs in one basket for any future disruption. We need to find some level of continuity and comfort with our supply chain if another global pandemic or global disaster were to hit our supply chain. So there's a lot of what can we do to get our eggs out of the one basket? How can we find a more robust, more resilient supply chain? Accelerated by kind of geopolitical unrest, accelerated by tax and trade war, and just supported by material availability and raises in prices on material, raises in prices on global labor. Where is manufacturing overhead being allocated? So there's just a lot of levers and trends that are all kind of converging at once. That is honestly benefiting our peers here in North America, Mexico, and the United States, where we're being targeted for a lot of really attractive manufacturing programs.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're seeing, just to add to that, is a lot of public and private investment in manufacturing in the US. And then with the backdrop of a very low unemployment rate, it's starting to get into this challenge of an increased demand for onshore, nearshore manufacturing capabilities,
Yep.
and some supply issues kind of underlying.
Yeah, absolutely good point. You know, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure bill, it's all accelerated the targeting of the United States for more manufacturing programs. So it's cultivating not an artificial demand, but it's kind of re-pivoting global demand from one region to the next. And then
Yeah.
the United States and Mexico is kind of left scrambling a little bit to figure out how they're going to handle that restructured demand profile. How do we restructure our material availability? How do we restructure our labor availability? And how do we restructure our manufacturing overhead footprint? Those are not easy levers to pull, especially after you've been implementing and deploying an Asia-based strategy for almost 25 years. So it's just we're in kind of a new ecosystem, a new frontier of trying to support this demand change in manufacturing here in North America.
And it seems like, or sounds like, from what you've both described, that throughout this transition, it's sort of uncovering gaps that need to be filled and need to be plugged very quickly in order to ramp up and meet that demand. So what are some of the larger gaps that you see to make this a reality?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's skilled labor, right? And
Hmm.
as we're seeing more investment in the U.S. Manufacturing, a lot of that also comes in terms of technical capabilities within the manufacturing industry. So we see employers doing things like partnering with universities to bring in skilled talent, partnering with industry associations, but also looking to partner with companies like SCRG. So what are providers who understand this industry, who are specialists, who understand, what are the profiles that are needed, what are the skills that are needed, and can help tap into those kind of talent pools in a talent scarce market. Because what we've seen is an increase over the past, I think, 10 or 15 years. There was a little bit of a dip because of COVID, but in manufacturing jobs in the US, and that's just getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
So what you mentioned skilled labor, and I'll kick this over to you, Harrison. Like, what types of skilled labor are needed to meet that demand?
It's interesting. So supply chain resources bucketizes our labor pool, whether it's direct or indirect labor, into kind of four main buckets, and that's quality, engineering, supply chain, and program management. So when you think about a manufacturing environment, you're going to need folks that are going to need to support the manufacturing environment in an assembly, test, pack, and ship capacity. You're also going to need facilities folks to maintain that manufacturing facility for safety and health and compliance purposes. But it's also interesting that the world is getting smarter. So the manufacturing floor is getting smarter, as is the products that are going through that manufacturing environment. So what we're seeing is a lot more data heavy, data science, data analytics, data visualization, because all of the data that's coming off the manufacturing floor is super critical for optimization and yield optimization and throughput, but also the IoT devices, the smart machinery on the floor. All of that has a data and cybersecurity and cloud storage element to it too. So what we've been seeing is there's a lot of hardware, but now there's a significant amount of software. So it's really this convergence of hardware, software, design, and data. So the skilled labor resources needed to kind of support this new environment. I think what the United States is finding is there's a little bit of a gap there. There's a talent gap. There's a deficiency in kind of the folks that were graduating with a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree every year is being outpaced by the demand of those jobs. So it's a really good time to be looking for a job, because all of these businesses are looking to stand up manufacturing resources here in North America and in the US, and they can't find the technical and skilled folks to either work in a direct labor capacity or in an indirect labor capacity, which means you're more in kind of a program management or product type of capacity. So it's a very interesting environment out there right now.
Yeah, so I'm here in Atlanta, and we've got the Georgia Tech here in Atlanta. And I was talking with one of their supply chain leaders, and they've done a lot of partnering with industry to help them solve some of these challenges, right? So to make sure that their graduates are well prepared to fill some of those, skilled labor needs. I also had a meeting with someone who was previously running kind of a consulting firm's manufacturing center of excellence. And what he shared with me is that a lot of the work that they were doing on kind of training people for industry was actually happening at the employer side.
In real time.
Oh.
Because the big consulting firms can't even keep up with the technical changes that are happening on the manufacturing floor. So it's just things are changing so quickly.
It's almost been flipped upside down, and especially in those very forward tech heavy types of disciplines. So when you think about generative AI and cloud cybersecurity and quantum computing and digital twins, the learnings are all happening in real time on a manufacturing floor. So academia cannot keep up because the case studies haven't even been written yet. So like trying to train that next generation is proving to be very, very difficult, which is where you're finding these public-private institutional partnerships, which is super critical to finding that next generation because they're currently in school at Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of dovetails nicely into the next question that I had prepared, which is we just touched a bit on how employers might find the skilled labor that they need, right? These partnerships. But I think there's also a difference between finding them versus attracting them and then retaining them. So what types of things should these manufacturing employees or employers try to do to attract and retain that right type of talent?
Yeah.
I'll take that to either of you, whoever wants to.
Joanna, you want to take that first? I'm happy to do it. I've got a bunch of notes on this one on my side.
No, I'm happy to. And I think you can talk about this also from kind of that manufacturing perspective, Harrison, but employer brand is obviously an important thing. Is this the kind of company that has a strong reputation that I want to be part of? Are they offering opportunities to upskill me? We've been hearing that, Amazon is doing a big upskilling initiative where they're offering folks that are, in their distribution center to learn about some of the technical skills that Harrison was just talking about in terms of generative AI as an example. Those are things that are going to attract employees. But the things that employees really care about, those are important drivers. But the biggest driver is, am I paid fairly? Do I have good benefits? Is it a safe working environment, especially on the manufacturing floor? Do I have access to the latest technology? So I feel like this is an optimized, well-run process that I'm part of. Those are some of the things that they care about, and they care about flexibility. And flexibility for an engineer in the manufacturing environment is very different than flexibility for someone who might be in business services who might think, remote work is a good flexible option that, frankly, in the manufacturing industry, they don't have that. But what employers can provide are things like, flexible shift schedules or flexible work arrangements in terms of the number of hours that you're working a week, or maybe it's more paid time off to spend time with family or to handle your caregiving responsibilities, that sort of thing. So I think these are all things that employers need to be thinking about, when they're thinking about, how to attract the best skilled labor in what is really a very talent scarce market right now.
Yeah.
Harrison, what would you add to that?
Joanna, I think you hit most of it. I think the only thing I add is there's an ESG flavoring and component to it to consider as well. This next generation is going to be mostly Gen Z, mostly millennial. So they really want to work for a fulfilling, challenging environment, but they need to have that business have an eco-friendly stance that is very realistic, and they'll be able to sense if it's disingenuous. So they really want to work in an inclusive environment that's going to be eco-friendly for a business that's good for the larger global community. I think that can't just be lip service anymore, because the Gen Z millennials will be able to sniff that out pretty quickly. So, Joanna, I think you did a really good job. I think I'll touch on maybe just like some mentorship opportunities, some career guidance. I've seen a lot of personal career growth. They don't want to just be on a predictable career trajectory that other folks have been on in the past. They want to kind of sit down with a career coach provided by the company, where they build out what the next 5, 10, 15 years looks like based on their personal skill set and their personal goals.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, I hate to say it, but we are already at time for this session. This has been really insightful, and I thank you both for sharing your thoughts and your experiences. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap up? I'll ask Joanna first.
Yeah, no, I would just say, and I mentioned it earlier, I think SCRG brings a lot to the table because of the history, specifically working with contract manufacturers in this sector, understanding what those kind of skills and talents are. And Harrison talks with to the kind of different buckets of the different types of profiles or roles that you source for. And I think that can just be a really helpful part of that partnership ecosystem, is working with a specialist provider who really understands the space and can tap into some of those talent scarce pools of talent. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I would add here.
Very well put. I think the world has just emerged from a material constraint environment, and now we're anticipating to move into a labor constrained environment. So there's going to be a lot of pretty ferocious competition for direct labor, indirect labor, all of these skilled positions. So companies really need to be thoughtful and intentional about how they're going to handle that demand change profile, and find the labor to actually support their programs and be successful. And I think Joanna said it really well, is, SCRG's heritage and foundation is finding appropriate resources and then deploying them to customers that need them most. So we'd love to, chat with you further about it. I think this conversation is likely not our last fireside chat on U.S. recruiting and the push for nearshore manufacturing services.
Yeah, agreed. Well, for those of you who tuned in and are watching, thank you so much for your time. Harrison, Joanna, thank you again, both of you, for your insights and wisdom. If you did enjoy this content, please follow us, like, subscribe, share with your networks. And if there's any questions that you have, if you'd like to learn more about Supply Chain Resources Group and what we've been doing for the last 15 years in manufacturing, please reach out. You can find us at scrgww.com. Find us on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks all.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.